Most men never realize this, but attraction is not built by saying the right thing. It is built in the quiet moments when you do nothing, yet everything is felt. Somewhere along the way, masculinity became loud, rushed, and desperate for validation, but the truth is simpler and deeper. There is one small, almost forgotten gesture that makes a woman feel safe, seen, and emotionally drawn to you without you trying. When you understand this, you stop chasing attention and start commanding it naturally. Stay with me until the end, because once you see it, you will never move the same way again around women. Comment your location below and subscribe to the channel for more real psychology. Most men think confidence is something you show. They think it lives in volume, in clever words, in constant movement. But when you really study human psychology, especially female attraction, you see something very different at work. True confidence is not noisy, it is calm. It is the ability to remain centered when nothing is going your way, and to remain humble when everything is. Women are deeply attuned to this because calm signals safety, and safety is the foundation of attraction, not excitement. When a man walks into a room and feels the need to announce himself, explain himself, or prove himself, he is unconsciously communicating uncertainty. He is asking the room for permission to exist. A man who leads with calm does the opposite. He moves slowly. He listens more than he speaks. He responds instead of reacting. This is not passivity. This is emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is one of the clearest markers of masculine strength. Leadership, in its most attractive form, is not about control. It is about direction. A man who calmly decides where to sit, when to leave, or how to handle an unexpected moment is doing more than making choices. He is relieving the mental load. Female psychology responds to this because it allows her to relax. When she senses that someone else is capable of steering the moment, her nervous system softens. Attraction grows in that space. This is why quiet certainty carries more weight than bravado. A man who does not rush to fill silence is communicating that he trusts himself. Silence, when held with ease, becomes a statement. It says, I am comfortable here. I do not need approval. That comfort is contagious. People lean in. Women feel it immediately, even if they cannot explain why. There is also a philosophical layer to this. Calm leadership reflects inner order. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned, you stop performing and start being. That authenticity is rare, and rarity creates value. Most people are fragmented, pulled in different directions by fear, desire, and validation. A man who is internally ordered stands out without effort, so the gesture is not something flashy. It is the refusal to hurry. It is choosing presence over performance. It is knowing that your value does not rise or fall based on how you are perceived in a single moment. When you embody that, you are not trying to attract. You are simply allowing others to respond to who you already are. The moment you stop trying to be impressive and start being grounded is the moment people feel you before you speak. One of the most misunderstood dynamics in attraction is protection. Many men hear that word and immediately think of dominance, jealousy, or control. But female psychology responds to something far more subtle and far more intelligent. What creates emotional pull is not possession. It is presence, a man who is aware of his surroundings, of her comfort, and of the moment without making a show of it, communicates strength in its most mature form. Protection, when it is healthy, is almost invisible. It shows up when you instinctively position yourself closer to the street side of the sidewalk, not because you planned it, but because awareness is natural to you. It shows up when you notice her discomfort in a crowded space and calmly adjust the situation without asking for credit. These actions tell a story. They say, I am paying attention, I am capable. You do not have to manage everything alone. From a psychological standpoint, This matters because the nervous system is always scanning for safety. Women are especially sensitive to this, not intellectually, but emotionally. When a man creates a sense of ease without restricting freedom, her body relaxes. And when the body relaxes, emotional openness follows. This is not about rescuing. It is about reliability. There is a quiet confidence in knowing you can handle things if needed, without needing to prove it. Philosophically, this kind of protection reflects restraint. Anyone can react. Anyone can become territorial or loud. Restraint requires self-control. It requires trust in yourself. A man who does not panic when attention enters the room, who does not compete aggressively, who does not tighten his grip when he feels uncertainty, signals inner security. That inner security is deeply attractive because it implies stability over time, not just intensity in the moment. What repels attraction is when protection turns into surveillance. Constant checking, subtle jealousy, or attempts to limit her autonomy communicate fear. Fear dissolves desire. Protection without possession does the opposite. It expands space. It says, I trust myself enough to trust you. And trust is one of the strongest emotional amplifiers there is. There is also an ethical layer here. True masculinity respects choice. When a woman feels protected and free at the same time, she does not feel managed. She feels respected. Respect builds admiration. Admiration builds attraction. This sequence cannot be rushed or forced. It emerges naturally when a man is grounded in who he is. So the gesture is not grabbing her hand tighter. It is knowing when to let go. It is stepping in when needed and stepping back without resentment. It is being steady without being heavy. When you master that balance, you stop trying to hold attention. You become someone attention rests on. The men who leave the deepest impression are not the ones who cage desire, but the ones who create a space where desire feels safe to stay. Touch is one of the most powerful tools a man has, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many men believe that attraction is built by contact, by frequent touches, by constant attempts to get closer. But female psychology reacts differently. It is not the quantity of touch that matters, but the quality, the timing, and the restraint behind it. Intentional touch communicates confidence, value, and awareness. Overuse communicates neediness, and neediness is repulsive because it signals insecurity. A brief, deliberate touch can create a depth of connection that words rarely achieve. It might be a hand lightly placed on the small of her back as you guide her through a doorway, or a touch on her shoulder when you make a meaningful point. It is not about holding or forcing intimacy. It is about marking presence in a way that is noticeable yet non-intrusive. The moment is fleeting, but its psychological impact is profound because it registers as a signal of assurance. Her mind registers, her body responds, and attraction deepens without a word being spoken. The principle behind this is restraint. The man who understands touch knows when to give it and when to step back. He does not fill every moment with physical contact, nor does he let hesitation or fear prevent connection. Restraint communicates self-mastery. It says, I am aware of my power and I do not need to overextend it to prove myself. Female psychology is wired to notice this because it mirrors safety and value. It is an unspoken message. I am confident, I am capable, and I respect your boundaries. Touch also carries philosophical significance. It reflects intention. Every gesture, no matter how small, can either amplify presence or dilute it. The man who rushes to touch, who clings or insists, shows urgency, impatience, and low self-regard. The man who touches with thoughtfulness communicates patience, self-assuredness, and depth. This difference is subtle but unmistakable. It is the difference between stirring fleeting curiosity and sparking enduring desire. Psychologically, touch bridges the gap between rational thought and emotional response. Words can be analyzed, judged, or ignored, but touch is immediate. It bypasses the mind's chatter and reaches directly to emotion. A well-timed, restrained gesture can trigger feelings she did not even know she had. She notices the awareness behind it, the intentionality, the respect. And that is what creates fascination, curiosity, and a magnetic pull. The key, then, is precision and timing. Touch too often, and you risk diminishing value. Touch too little, and you risk missing connection. The mastery lies in knowing both your own presence and her response. Awareness and subtlety become your greatest allies. When a man learns to touch intentionally, he stops chasing desire and begins allowing it to respond naturally. He does not force attraction. He simply creates the conditions for it to emerge. And that is the rare, almost forgotten gesture that melts any woman without a word. Remember this: the strength of your presence is measured not by how much you reach, but by how thoughtfully and intentionally you connect. When touch is purposeful and restrained, it becomes irresistible.